Mary Glowstick. Mary Glowstick.
We are ready to transmit. We are ready to transmit.
In 1977, a council house in Enfield, London, became the centre of a controversy that would grip the world. On the 30th of August that year, Peggy Hodgson, a 47-year-old divorced mother of 4, went into a children's bedroom to tell them to stop mucking about and go to sleep. The kids, Janet and Margaret Hodgson, claimed to be haunted by a poltergeist. What followed was a series of bizarre and terrifying events that would go down in history as one of the most controversial paranormal cases of all time. That night, they were complaining that the bed was shaking, but thinking no more of it, Peggy went to bed. The following night, she heard noises like someone shuffling about on the lino in slippers, and then 4 loud knocks. A chest of drawers slid across the floor. Peggy pushed it back, and it slid forward again. She tried to push it back, but couldn't. At that point, the family fled to a neighbour's on nearby Green Street to ask for help. Vic Nottingham and his son Gary went over to Peggy's house to see what the fuss was about, and heard knocking coming from all over the house. At that point, they called the police. One of the bobbies present claimed to see a chair wobble a bit and then slide 4 feet. Returning the following night, Vic was attacked by flying Lego and marbles.
To see a Lego, I witnessed a box of Lego underneath a chair, but I walked into the room. As I walked into the room, the Lego began to fly.
This was witnessed over the next few days by members of the local council and clergy who thought they were able to help. They weren't. So who are you going to call? They called the press, who at first thought it was a ploy by Peggy to get a new house, but they were unable to debunk the goings-on. Enter the SPR. The Society for Psychical Research's presence was led by Maurice Grosse and Guy Lyon Playfair. They witnessed strange phenomena such as furniture moving on its own, unexplained knocks and sounds, and even levitation. The Daily Mail broke the story on September the 10th, and the events were widely reported in the media, quickly capturing the public's imagination, with Peggy giving interviews and the BBC's Ros Morris from Radio 4 doing all-night vigils with Grosse. It was observed that the Hodgson house was not a picture of happiness, and it's commonly believed that poltergeist activity starts after a major trauma or life event. In this case, their father had abandoned them. Grosse surmised the person at the centre of activity, Janet, exhibited symptoms of repressed anger or distress. He believed that the haunting was due to the discharge of mental energy he dubbed recurrent spontaneous psychokinesis, or RSPK. He theorised that the person was involuntarily giving this out in order to let out their repressed feelings. This certainly seemed to be the case with Janet, who had a licence to swear profusely and displayed increasingly aggressive behaviour, and at one point was given Valium by the doctor to sedate her. However, under sedation, she levitated and crashed on top of a radio, according to her brother. On November the 5th, Grosse decided to communicate with the spirit using the old 1 for no and 2 for yes knocking game. He asked some questions. Are you a male spirit? Knock knock. Did you used to live in this house? Knock knock. Was it more than 50 years ago? Knock knock. Did you die in this house? Knock knock. Are you unhappy? Knock. Why are you here? Is it because you want to give us a special message? Knock. Are you having a game with me? The spirit then threw a cardboard box and pillow at him. Another technique was used on advice from one of the many psychics to visit, to leave pens around, ready to be used. Messages started appearing around the house. Peggy found one on the fridge that said,
I will stay in this house. Do not read this to anyone, or I will retaliate.
And another one that read,
Can I have a tea bag?
It was remarked that the writing was similar to Janet's. In December, the increasing number of SPR members challenged the entity to speak, and after some whistles and barking, a gruff voice calling himself Joe Watson began to speak.
The same question as I asked earlier. How many voices are there?
600.
600 voices.
I know the joke.
How many really are there, Margaret?
I think so far we've had 10
Right.
sensible voices.
However, the next night, it said his name was Bill Wilkins, and on Tuesday the 13th of December, Maurice Gross's son Richard, who was a newly qualified solicitor, helped his father interrogate the presence. The spirit responded with knocking in response to questions, but a man's voice was soon heard coming from somewhere behind Janet's neck. The voice identified itself as Bill Wilkins, who had died in the house at the age of 72. Richard asked him how he died, and he said,
I went blind. I had a hemorrhage. I fell asleep. I died in a chair in the corner downstairs.
Bill Wilkins' son, Terry, later confirmed that this was indeed how his father had died. When Playfair asked why he wasn't visible, Bill said,
I'm invisible because I am a ghost.
Gross taped up Janet's mouth, but the voice continued. He then asked her to hold water in her mouth, which she did, and the voice could still be heard talking. Gross recorded hours of the voice by using a contact microphone placed on the back of Janet's head, and it was in December that the local lollipop lady witnessed Janet floating around her room. The haunting lasted about a year and a half and involved so many people, making this case far from straightforward. Sceptics argued that the girls had faked the events, and some accused Gross and Playfair of being taken in by their hoax. Others suggested that the events were the result of psychological factors such as mass hysteria or suggestion, as observers often see what they expect to see. Dingwall, Goldney and Hall, who worked on the Borley Rectory case in 1956, argued that the influence of suggestion plays a large part in what people see or hear. Once in the mind of the affected, belief can be strengthened and simple events misinterpreted in order to fit them into a desired pattern. This is confirmation bias, which is the tendency to interpret new evidence as confirmation of existing beliefs or theories. Confirmation bias, alongside poor memory and consensus reporting, means that strong evidence is needed alongside witness testimony.
Where is he? Oh, what's that?
The slipper was thrown across the room and hit the door as I was holding the door.
Despite the controversy, the Enfield Haunting has left a lasting legacy in pop culture. It certainly inspired, even terrified me as a youngster, and has inspired books, documentaries, and even a TV drama series. It has since become a cultural touchstone for debates about the paranormal and the nature of scientific investigation. So what really happened in that council house at Enfield? The truth may never be known for sure, but the Enfield Haunting will remain a fascinating and compelling case, and its legacy continues to be felt today.
Well, I think this is probably the best case this century. In fact, as far as documentation is concerned, it may be the best case of all time.